So, welcome back to what's the name? Not welcome back to, just welcome to. This is our first episode.
What was the one you said?
Let's talk ball.
Sure. Working
We're,
title.
yeah, we're workshopping the name.
Um, yeah. So hockey season is wrapping up.
Yes, yeah, which we just talked about on Let's Talk Puck.
We did.
So
So yeah, you're gonna need to have other sports to fill the content void. I know there's off-season stuff.
there is, but like barely. Like
Exactly,
there's
especially
trades and
yeah.
um,
So
the draft, but there's only so much you can talk
so I guess this episode is gonna be a little bit of a we're gonna do a status check on you, Pooja. See
about.
how tuned in you are.
Oh, whoa,
and then
whoa,
and then kind of do we can do primers on the different sports that we'll be continuing on through the summer, or we can kind of talk about what's on the horizon as well.
yeah,
um I guess just for context, we are at the beginning of June, so the NHL finals, the Stanley Cup finals, are in game 3 tonight, and the NBA finals are turning over to game 3 on Monday night.
yeah.
um Both of those series could continue on for another couple weeks, or they could end soon. um So that'll be the end of those seasons, and then they'll be off until October, or that the regular season at least. Um,
And then, I mean, then it's just pretty much the MLB, right? For a couple months.
For the American sports calendar, yes, it'll be the MLB for team sports. So that's the big one. I think we should check in on golf today.
Oh,
See,
wow.
there's
So
some
you're
big
just
golf
like,
things over the summer.
oh, I'm so unfamiliar, but I need to learn.
No,
So
no,
this
this is
is
the thing.
perfect. Yeah.
I'm the sports calendar. The summer, golf is a big thing,
Yeah.
and then the World Cup is happening.
That is true.
So
On my baking TikTok, after I finish my Stanley Cup baking series, I'm pivoting to a World Cup baking series because the timing will align pretty much.
there we go. So we should check in on. We can do whatever order you want.
Okay, let's start with the NBA because I feel like that is the I think it'll be the quickest to talk about. We just filmed an episode about the Stanley Cup Finals, and I feel like there wasn't that much to talk about because we were only 2 games in.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
similar vibe of the NBA where we're only 2 games in, and
Yes.
it was a it was a close 2 games,
Very close to
very
games.
close 2 games. Yesterday's was 1 point,
It was
right?
literally,
Yeah, it was 105 to 104 or something like that.
I think
Um,
exactly, yes.
yeah, well, I'm tapped in. I'm locked.
You are locked in.
Um, but let's start with that.
Okay. I guess how much of the NBA playoffs have you been watching?
See, my thing with basketball is as someone who's under 5 feet, I, and maybe this isn't limited to me being under 5 feet, but I am just kind of alarmed by the height of a lot of basketball players. It really freaks me out. And so sometimes I do have a little bit of a tough time watching the sport itself.
You're alarmed.
They're a little too tall for me. It kind of freaks me out. And I feel like there are a lot of people where at baseline they kind of feel a little too tall for me and they're like kind of average height, like 6 feet is like maybe not too tall for me, but like you're getting there. And so then basketball players are in their whole other, like they are next level with their height. I just can't. That so Victor Wembanyama freaks me out. Great player. Great player.
But he freaks you out.
He's so tall.
Well, his nickname is the Alien.
I know he's just really I think if I stood next to him, I would look like I was like shrunk, like you like clicked on me and just like shrunk me.
So there's a very famous photo from the 1980s, I believe, of there was two NBA players. One's name was Muggsy Bogues,
Mhm.
which I always thought was a funny name.
That what a name. What a name.
He's like 5'5". He was very short
He
for
was
an
an
NBA player.
NBA player?
Yeah, he was very, very small for an NBA
Whoa.
player. He was very short. You could Google his height maybe. Muggsy Bogues, and he's standing next to, I think, who was his teammate at the time, Manute Bol, who's an African player. Very tall,
He's
7'3".
5'3".
Yeah, yeah, Muggsy Bogues is
Oh
very
my
short.
god.
And you can even Google the image if you like, but there's an image of them standing next to each other, which is like used quite often because Manute Bol was like 7'3" or something.
Oh my god, here
Yeah, yeah,
it is. That's crazy.
yeah. Yeah, they were on the Washington Bullets, I believe,
Yeah.
together. Anyways, you made me think of that because it'd be like you standing next to Victor Wembanyama, but even more,
Even more of a gap,
yeah,
right?
even
That's
more of a gap.
crazy. Oh my god.
Um, but the height of the basketball players bothers you. Yeah, that can get you.
But
Um,
I follow the score, so I will like keep track of the live score. I'll check in like as I'm like every once in a while I'll like check in on the game for the
sure.
most part. And like sometimes when it's coming really close, like I watched the end of yesterday's game because I was like, oh my god, I need to watch this. I was like, if I miss whatever's happening right now, I'm gonna be so upset. So I need to watch this. Um,
Yeah, I think if I had to like describe the narrative of this playoffs in like a short amount of time, I'd say in the East, it's been really dominant by the Knicks.
yeah,
The East was kind of interesting this year because the powers, so to say, like the Celtics specifically, were diminished because of Jason Tatum's injury.
yeah,
He did come back, but there was some questions about the viability of that, and that kind of came to fruition. Obviously, they lost in the first round.
yeah.
There was also the rise of the Pistons, and who were very good in the regular season, but they had really bad flaws. And the Cavs were also a very good regular season team, but had some flaws as well. The Knicks were seen as this team that like had like ever since they put together this core with Karl Anthony Towns and the trade for McCall Bridges. Brunson's obviously a very good player. They hadn't shown they had gotten close, but hadn't shown the like top end potential. And that sounds weird to say. They made the conference finals last year, but they were kind of a question mark too. So no one really knew what was going to happen in the East. But after the second round, it became very clear. They kind of the Knicks were a wrecking ball. They swept uh, the 76ers and the Cavs back to back series. They didn't sweep the Hawks, but in the first round. But after being down 2-1, they won 4 straight games
Mm.
and won the last game in like one of the biggest blowouts I've ever seen in my life. I think they won by like 70 points.
Yeah, no,
So,
I did see that.
so the big story out of the East is that the Knicks are just a wrecking crew. They've won now their 14 straight games. Um, so there's that in the East. In the West, the perception before the finals was that the West was just a much tougher road. OKC obviously defending champs,
Mhm.
and then the Spurs are kind of this. They're very very unique in that they're very young.
Yeah,
Young teams like that don't usually put it together this early.
yeah,
With their best players all being except for De'Aaron Fox. He's a little bit older, but
yeah.
all their other best players are under 25. So unheard of to really put it all together and make the finals this quickly. And with Wembanyama, who is transcendent, he's not just big. It's
He's no, yeah,
no. I know. I'm not saying this for your benefit. I don't think it's very useful to even your podcast listeners. But Wemby is doing things that like we've never seen before in the defensive end.
yeah.
And offensively, the scariest part is he's not even fully formed yet, but he still has like really, really big moments offensively. But the team around him too, and this is an undercovered part, at least in more casual circles, is also very, very good. They have really, really aggressive guards. So like the and ball handlers, Stephon Castle's been phenomenal. Um, the playoffs have really shown how good Dylan Harper, their rookie guard, is.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess coming into the finals after getting over that really, really tough Western Conference Finals against the Thunder, there was just an assumption they were the slight favorites that they wouldn't go down 0-2 at the very least. I think that was a surprising result.
Yeah, because they were at home the first two games.
They were at home.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not even gonna say it's fluky. Like the Spurs had some bad turnovers down the stretch in both games. In game one, Wemby dribbled it off his foot with a chance to kind of like really make that game tight down the stretch, and the Knicks kind of took advantage of that and won by double digits, but more from a closeout scenario than the game being a double digit game. And then last night the big discussion was over that pass that you did see that
Mhm.
Wemby threw into the back of Stephon Castle.
Yeah.
You can't, that is where the youth might be showing up, right? Like bad situational turnovers and not closing out games that are winnable is like how you lose series. um and the Spurs are going to have to dig deep and win 2 games on the road now.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I don't think the Spurs are going to get swept by the Knicks.
I don't think they. I mean, because I think their gap is closing, or like I mean, quite literally, the points gap is closing a little bit. I think that truly last night could have been anyone's game. Like when you have a 1 point difference,
No, it could
yeah,
have.
like that was ridiculous. And I just yeah. So I think that like at least from what I've seen on like the hockey side of it, do you think that to a certain extent the Spurs might be like, man, we're just happy to be here. Like to what you said about like them not being fully formed, like do you think they're like, wait, no, we need to win this?
Not at all. I think Wembanyama is a uniquely competitive guy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and he's the core of that team. They also are like, even though they're young, they're not even getting to the finals. Yes, is an accomplishment in and of itself, but I don't think anyone in that locker room is saying this is like a crowning achievement. Like they're
Yeah.
not gonna phone it in New York.
Well, I mean, I think that athletes in general, I think would never be like, I don't think it's over till it's over for
Correct,
most
but there
athletes.
are to your point, there are people mentally that wouldn't be able to get into that competitive once you're down 0-2, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough spot to be in. You're about to go to New York City and play in the Garden of all places, Madison Square
Yeah.
Garden. Like, but Wembanyama, I think, is a unique competitor, and he's where a lot of the energy for that team is derived from. Not past just being their best player, he's their leader.
Hmm.
Um, it's going to come down to him taking over a game at some point.
Hmm.
He had a much better offensive game in game two than he did in game one,
Hmm.
but it still didn't happen until the second half. The Knicks have done a very good job of keeping him from getting what he wants to do easily on the offensive side of the ball. And that has led him to be unusually passive.
Yeah.
He was a lot more aggressive, especially in the third and fourth quarters last night.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough, clearly, and his defense is always going to be there. But yeah, I think they will. They got to win game three to have any shot in the series, but
Hmm.
we'll see what happens.
So what would be your like what do you think is your prediction of like I would assume that it's probably the Knicks,
At this point, yes,
but
I
in
would.
how many games?
Uh, I mean, the statistics are hard. When you go down 2-0, the odds aren't really in your favor.
They're like
When you go down,
at
sorry,
least 5 to 90.
going down
2
2-0 on your
on the
home
road.
court,
Yeah.
yeah. The I think the most likely outcome is 5 games.
Okay.
I
Do you
think
think they're gonna
I
take
could.
one?
I don't think the Spurs are going to get swept. I think 5 games easily is probably the most like if you did like a probability chart, is the most likely.
Okay.
Um, I could see it going to 6. Um, I don't think we're going to get a 7 game series at this point.
Yeah.
If we do, then obviously it would be advantageous to the Spurs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the big thing, like the implications of that series, I think you were talking about how about who needs the Stanley Cup more, like Vegas or Carolina, and how like most people are saying it's like Vegas doesn't really need that right now. Like
Yeah.
not need it. Anyone wants to win a cup.
Yeah, you've got so
In
many
the NBA side, it's like that to the nth degree. Like
Yeah.
the Spurs have won 5 titles since '99,
Hmm.
and the Knicks haven't won since '72.
Yeah.
So like not just like the players on the court, their drive to win, but like if you talk about the city and the franchises, like the a lot of people don't like the Knicks because they're the Knicks, right? And it's New York's team. But I think there would be a moment if New York was to get a championship again for the first time in over 50 years. So
Um, the last thing that I want to show you about this before we wrap up is did you see before we move on to golf probably for the sake of our
sure.
podcast timing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
did you see the photo from last year of the Knicks like at a nightclub partying
Okay.
with a board that said 2026 finals or finals 2026 like with one of like the bottle service signs?
No, I didn't see that.
So this photo from last year of like the Knicks with like their finals 2026 signs and like I feel like a lot of people at the time when the photo like aired or whatever were like you're cursing it. Like obviously now you're not going to make it. And then here they are. So I think any team, the Celtics, the Bruins, at least in for us in Boston, maybe the Patriots while you're at it. Um I think any team that's like, oh, I like lost it, like we needed that. I think that they should go and do exactly that because clearly there's some magic there.
They're manifesting.
Yeah, they should go back to that exact nightclub. Like that is manifestation at its finest. You cannot convince me that like at least one player on the Knicks didn't put that photo on a vision board and was like, "That's the dream." Like I can never prove that,
No,
but that's exactly what happened, and no one can tell me otherwise.
no.
So
Knicks are a great team.
they are.
They've been their starting lineup is maybe the best in Knicks history, and they have a lot of length. And Brunson's obviously amazing. It would be a well-earned championship if they
Yeah.
win it.
Yeah. All right. Tell me about golf, which I'm not super tapped into.
So you don't need to be, and I'm not going to like go over all the players or anything. I think what I wanted to get you in the loop on is where we are in the golf season and how this is going to shape the kind of the sports summer.
Yeah.
Because we are the golf calendar is really defined by when the majors are.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the Masters obviously is in April, and Rory McIlroy won the Masters this year. The golf calendar used to have the Masters in April, and then there was a gap between majors until we got to June,
Mm-hmm.
where there would be other events but no majors.
Mm-hmm.
And then in June is the U.S. Open,
Mm-hmm.
which is coming up soon, and then in July would be the Open Championship, which is the British Open in other terms. It's the one that's played in the UK. They changed it recently so that the PGA Championship, which used to then be in August, is now in May. So that's the fourth major. So now in this year we've had two majors already.
Yeah. Okay.
So Rory won the Masters, and then the PGA Championship was played at a fairly difficult course that kind of threw off a lot of the main contenders.
Mm-hmm.
And it was won by a like shocking kind of upset by a guy named Aaron Rai, who's a South Asian British man.
Well, and there we go.
Yeah,
Well,
and
we love to see that.
he's kind of a quirky dude. He's like not a bad player, but kind of like top 50-ish player.
Yeah.
He wears two gloves, which is really unique in golf. He puts covers on his irons, which is also really unique in golf. But he had a scorcher final round on a Sunday and won the PGA Championship. So those are sorry.
So what I'm hearing is there's also a little magic to him as well.
There is a little magic.
So everyone should take notes.
So yeah, Rory won the Masters back in April. That was his second in a row after not having won the Masters ever before that. And then Aaron Rai won. Since that PGA, there's just a kind of a downturn in the schedule. But this weekend is a big non-major tournament. It's called the Memorial. It's played in Dublin, Ohio.
Oh wow! And would you look at that? I'm some would say I'm familiar with the Memorial Tournament.
Yeah. This is why I wanted to talk about golf.
Wow! Oh my gosh, I didn't even process that. So for our viewers, I grew up in this quaint little small town of Dublin, Ohio, just outside of Columbus. That's not very quaint or small at all because its population is like 50,000 people.
Yep.
But famous for the Memorial Tournament every year, which is amazing to come from that town. But such an awful time to live in Dublin, Ohio.
It's just crowded with people.
It's just so crowded that I lived pretty close to the neighborhood. Like it's played at Muirfield.
Exactly, Muirfield Village.
Yeah, live like 10 minutes away from there. I grew up 10 minutes away from there. And a lot of my friends that I was in high school with were in Muirfield Village, and so hanging out with them was also the absolute worst during the Memorial Tournament. But that's just my personal vendetta. It is very cool to have something like that in your hometown, and so that's.
You know the history of the tournament?
I don't think that I do.
So this is its 50th year. It was started in 1976.
Should have gone back to Dublin, Ohio.
And it was started by perhaps the most famous golfer of all time, Jack Nicklaus.
Okay, I'm familiar.
So, anyways, he started the tournament and wanted it to be this kind of landmark event. He actually created the course as well. And yeah, it's seen as one of the best tournaments that's not a major. Mm-hmm. There's a couple others that are around or above it, but it's up there. So, anyways, that's being played this weekend and is seen as the biggest pre-US Open tournament. There's one more week between the two, but this is kind of the best field we're going to get of players before the US Open, because a lot of the best players don't play every week. Yeah. Rory McIlroy has not been playing very often this year and last season, really only kind of the bigger events. And so we have Rory McIlroy playing this weekend. We have Scotty Scheffler, who's like the #1 player in the world. Xander Schauffele, who's up there. A guy named Cameron Young. So a lot of heavy hitters. The tournament itself has been a mixed bag for some of those guys. The first the first day was like pretty normal. The second day, a lot of guys had bad rounds, including Scotty and Rory. They made the cut. This is a that usually at a golf tournament you cut about half the field after 2 days based on
Mhm.
your scores. This one's a little more unique, and they only cut about a third of the field, but everyone who's the big names made the cut, but we're not near the top of the leaderboard. But coming into the back end of this Saturday round, it's looking like it could be another outsider winning a big tournament
Wow.
because Scotty's making a push. I haven't checked it; it's actually going on literally right now. But Rory and Scotty were kind of having good but not great rounds, and so
Mhm.
they're 5 or 6 strokes behind the leaders. And the leaders are guys you would never have heard of, but Wyndham Clark, JT Poston, I think. Um, but we'll see where that ends up.
Yeah.
It's less important, that actual result is less important, other than Rory's never won that tournament, than like kind of the form the guys are in going into the U.S. Open, which is in 2 weeks at Shinnecock Hills, which is in New York State.
Mhm.
Um, the U.S. Open is an interesting event because it's seen as the most challenging major. Usually, it's a rotating course. The only one that is played at the same course every year is the Masters, which is in Augusta.
Yeah.
Every other
I'm also familiar.
Yes, you're also familiar from Georgia, or her family now lives in Georgia.
Yeah.
Um, but
I
anyway,
guess we just follow the golf.
you do. The U.S. Open is played typically at some of the most prestigious courses in the United States, and they set it up really difficult in a
Mhm.
really difficult way. So you get really low scoring. It's kind of like a grind it out kind of tournament. So
Mhm.
we'll see what happens there. And then in July will be the last major, which is the British Open, or the Open, as it's called, the Open Championship, as it's called pretty much everywhere except the United States. Uh, and that one is played in the UK at a rotating course. Um, and also can be challenging, mostly because the weather can be really windy and rainy. They play it on courses that are close to the ocean most of the time. So we'll see what happens there. Those are things to follow for the summer. But I wanted to open it up to you if you had any golf questions.
I don't think so, but I do think the next time that we circle back to this, like the next episode that we film, I think I will be 12 times more knowledgeable.
Okay. The nice thing
I'm
about
just
golf for Pooja in her hockey fandom, I felt is very player driven. You like the narratives
narratives.
and golf.
And I like the stats.
And there's a lot of, yeah.
Yeah.
So golf provides a lot of that. There's the stats are interesting because the only stat that really matters is the score. But there's a lot that goes into fairways hit and greens hit, all these things. And the individual player narratives are a lot of fun because even if they're not winning a tournament, a player can have a really good round. There's players that are week to week, even if it's not the majors, that are fighting for their position on the tour. We can talk past the majors. There's the PGA Tour has a playoff system that we don't need to get into now, but will be the thing that's going on in golf post the British or the Open Championship in July.
Mhm.
It's called the FedEx Championship. It's
Oh,
sponsored.
wow. How creatively named.
Exactly. So we can check in on that when the time comes, but
Yeah.
there'll be golf to watch / track
Yeah.
at some point. So yeah.
Awesome. And then aside from that, some other crazy things happening across the world with the French Open ends tomorrow, or I guess
Yes, tennis. Yeah.
at the day that this is being uploaded, which it will be tomorrow, it ends today. Um,
Yeah.
so there's that.
Well, the women's final is this morning.
It was who was the yes.
The Russian girl one.
Yes,
I
on Andre.
yeah.
Andre. I took Russian for like there was a solid 3 months when I was learning so much Russian, and I still can't even pronounce my.
Most of the women's players are from Eastern Europe. I don't.
That's yeah.
But yeah, the Russian girl won. Obviously, big upset of Sabalenka in the semifinals. I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I haven't been following it as closely. A
I
lot of the
also.
big hitters were knocked out early. Um, or
Um,
maybe even the quarterfinals Sabalenka lost. And on the men's side too,
it's
Alcaraz didn't play, and then Sinner lost very early. Djokovic lost very early. Um,
it's only women's doubles and men's singles tomorrow
yeah,
for
men's
those two
singles.
games.
Who is did Zverev
Zverev,
won his semifinal?
yeah, Zverev won his 75. That I did watch. So it's him and Kaboli.
Mhm. The Italian guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was following at work. I was like, I need to stay awake so that I don't fall asleep post night shift. and I was watching the French Open, like the semifinals, which was really fun. Actually, no, I think it was the quarterfinals. I was watching the quarterfinals.
Yeah. We'll
It
see
was
what
very
happens there. I hope everyone gets healthy and like in the right headspace before we get to Wimbledon and the US
fun.
Open later this summer. But
Hmm.
we'll see.
And we have the World Cup. What an exciting month of sport.
Yeah, the World
What
Cup
an
will be going
exciting
on.
month of sport. We have the World Cup starting in 5 days.
It is starting in 5 days.
I
How tuned in are you to the World Cup?
Not very. I was just talking today about going to like a New England MLS sport or like game at some point because I think that would be really fun. And you know what? Growing up in Columbus, Ohio,
The Crew.
the Crew,
They almost
which
left. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a big
so
thing. Save the Crew, right?
save the Crew, that was a big thing. And honestly, when I was growing up, because I wasn't super tuned into hockey when I was growing up, but like Columbus has the Blue Jackets, which now I love. Werenski won. I don't know where I was going with that. But wait, let me circle back to this. Warinsky won. I'm blanking on the name of this trophy. Um, the Norris. I was like, I that totally slipped my mind. So Warinsky won the Norris. I like the Blue Jackets now, but more than anything, because the Blue Jackets were kind of like you only really followed them if you were in like I don't know, you really cared about hockey. But the Crew was like the exciting professional sports team when I was growing up, which is crazy to say because now you come to Boston and it's every team that's not soccer.
I mean, if they didn't play in Foxborough, I think
Yeah, it is. Well,
they're
the
moving to
Patriots,
Everett.
yeah,
Well, the Patriots are different. It's the NFL, but like there's cities where MLS teams are big, and like I've talked to tons of people about this. If the Revolution is their name,
yeah,
when I should say, not if they're building a stadium
in Everett, yeah,
in Everett right
yeah.
next to the casino,
Oh,
uh,
good.
next to Encore. Yeah.
What a lovely choice that will be.
Well, I mean, it's not because the casino's there, but it's
No, but I am so excited to see how that plays out.
yeah. So, anyways, once they have a dedicated soccer stadium that's like closer into the city, I think that you'll see a bit more like of a culture around it.
Well, that was like even this morning when we were talking about going, and we were like, "Yeah, let's do it." Someone was
It's like,
like,
how do you get?
"This was like,
Yeah,
so how do we even get to Foxborough?" Which is great. I love the commuter rail. You know, I love the commuter rail. I take it to skate at Warrior. I take it to do Pilates classes in Westwood. I like take it to go see family. I used to work on the commuter rail. So it's like I love the commuter rail. And so in my mind I was like that is like I feel like if you know the Foxborough commuter rail line for anything, like you know or like just for like the commuter rail for anything, you know like oh, it's to go to Salem, it's to go to Providence and it takes you to Gillette Stadium. Like I like feel like those are the three things. So
yeah.
I feel like the fact I was like what do you mean? Like that's the only I feel like one of the only reasons that people take that line if they don't live on that line.
Yes.
So,
No. Anyways, yeah. It's a
sorry to
no, 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 no.
digress.
I'm trying to think of how we got to that. Yes, I work the MBTA, so that's the
There you go.
but it'll be or like the MLS season is going to be on pause. World Cup starts in 5 days. Uh, so you have been talking about soccer, but how tuned into like where the different countries are, like favorites? How much of that do you know about the
I'm
World Cup?
not very tuned into that at all. I do get my New York Times subscription, and so interestingly enough,
The
the only
Athletic,
thing,
yeah,
well, I have the Athletic.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I get the paper, like I get the Sunday paper delivered
Mm,
from the New York Times, and pretty much as of recently, because I haven't had as much time, the only section that I will read is the sports section, and the front page of the sports section, which I guess is not front page that much, but the front page of the sports section is always about the costs of just the various cities like trying to figure out how to navigate the World Cup where they're like this is costing a lot of money that they're
that
like
has been a
not
thing.
really support. And like the tickets are outrageous. I would love to go see a game if it wasn't like $1,000
It's
to go
more
see the
even,
game.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, FIFA gets a lot of heat for this, I think justifiably. They're kind of a for-profit entity, it seems.
Hmm.
Uh, and there's been a lot of pushback from the local like governments that like, no, we're not going to provide you all this free stuff while you're taking all of the money from the games.
Yeah.
Like, uh, that's a whole nother thing. Like, I care about, and I think FIFA is like corrupt, or they are literally corrupt. But they like, and I wish it was more accessible. I'm trying to like compartmentalized because I think the soccer part of it's cool.
The soccer, yeah, and that
The,
is, yeah,
the
I would
big
agree.
thing for this tournament, and I don't know like how many of previous World Cups you've watched, is there's been a massive expansion to the
Hmm.
field.
Hmm.
So they used to have 32 teams, now it's 48.
Good.
So that'll change the dynamics a lot because they're gonna. I mean, one, there's just more groups, but then the knockout stage will be longer. People are worried about the heat, how it will affect play, because a lot of the big, usually like the World Cup is played in Europe and it's a little cooler there. Not
Yeah.
usually it's played in Europe, but a lot of times it's been played in Europe. So we'll see on those fronts. The favorites, just for your knowledge,
Yeah, and
are
for our
and
listeners.
for the listeners are Spain, France, Argentina, England. I would say those are the top ones, and then there's some like fringe contenders. And Brazil like could is very talented and could easily contend. Brazil and
Mhm.
Germany are the next year, I would say. So those are like the usual suspects when it comes to World Cups too. Like there's not the thing about the World Cup is it's very exciting for anybody who's participating, and the group stage is really dynamic. But then once you comes down to who's going to win, it's usually one of like 8 countries.
Mhm.
Um, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But those are the stacked rosters. There's some really like talented young players. You'd be
Definitely
obviously
something to
like
track.
yeah. But there's concerns about injuries with some of them. Yamin Yamal,
Hmm.
the Spaniard who like lit up the Euros, and is like I don't think he's 21 yet, but
Yeah.
he is. There's concerns about whether he's going to be injured. That will affect Spain's chances. Uh, there's a few other smaller injuries. The English roster, I think, was somewhat influenced by injuries. They left off some of their best young players, like Cole Palmer.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like the group stage, people are worried it's going to be diluted because there's more teams.
Yeah.
Um, so it means that the like worse teams are going to get in than they would have before, and that'll lead to more like kind of like blowout kind of situations in the
Hmm.
group stage, and it won't be as like vying for position in that stage. And then once you get to the knockouts, you might get tired teams, and it'll just skew results. But it kind of remains to be seen. And then yeah, I think another big narrative, unfortunately, is like tournament logistics and cost and
It's not very
America's
accessible. Yeah.
America's global like perception right now, which isn't very good.
Yeah, it's just they're not gonna get the turn. I feel like it is such a cool thing to get such a big turnout, especially to build some hype around it in the United States. And
Yes.
it's not that's I have been marginally tapped into that of like it's just not going to get the turnout that it deserves, quite honestly. So
Yeah, I think it's been a bit of a like bungled thing. And there's not a ton of buzz for it, I would say. Like there's a little bit. Uh Part of that's the US team doesn't really have a shot, to be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
But
I mean they could turn things around. Never say never.
they have they're
Maybe
not
they put World Cup 2026 on their
the US the
unavoidable.
US team's best like result is like the quarterfinals, most likely. Uh they have some talented players, none of whom are in particularly good form. Um, they just lost a friendly to Germany,
Hmm.
which isn't like to say that they couldn't beat any of the other good teams. But I, as a U.S. men's national team fan, I hope they get out of the group stage. Obviously, I think they will, and then maybe win a knockout game or two. That would be equivalent, if not better, than a lot of their other World Cup appearances.
Hmm.
They haven't made the quarterfinals in over 20 years, so. Uh, but ultimately, I think it'll come down to those heavy hitters that are always competing for
Yeah,
the final.
I
So,
mean, yeah.
but that'll dominate the sports calendar. As much as there's not necessarily hype for it in the U.S., it's gonna be
I mean, it's coming at a time when there's not much else happening in team sports.
yeah.
So,
So that's World Cup, yeah. And
all
then
right,
we have one final sport to talk about.
it's baseball, right?
It's baseball.
I was like, we covered a lot of ground. I just wanted to roll.
I know we're yeah. We
Well,
can keep it. We'll talk about baseball more in the future
yeah,
episodes. So
and I think it's just that there's so much happening right now in every other sport, and baseball is just kind of like the one thing that's like,
baseball checks on. I always like to say baseball seasons are marathons, not sprints.
yeah, yeah,
Both for the teams and for the fans. But yeah, baseball.
yeah.
I will give the overview of the season thus far, and then we can kind of talk about what the
Feeling
rest of the summer will look like.
feeling Bostoned out. worked at the market this morning and I was wearing my Bruins shirt and a Red Sox hat, and our market manager was like, "Wow, you're a big Boston sports fan."
There you
And I was like, "There," and yes,
go.
I
Yeah.
am.
Well, the Red Sox are an interesting team this year. They're indicative, I would say, of like the number one thing I would say is the contenders have been struggling to start the year. Not just Boston. The New York Mets have been really struggling. The Phillies were started off really rough. Um, the Toronto Blue Jays, who went to the World Series last year, started out very rough. So like it's been uh, kind of an odd sport for the first 2 months because there's like no one really knows who's like going to be in it for the long haul. There's been some teams that have overperformed. Like actually, my favorite team, the White Sox, have been performing way better than they were expected to.
Yeah.
There's a couple other teams that are like exceeding expectations where they're at, but generally it's a very muddled picture, which plays into like where we are in the season.
Yeah.
Um, this is the turning point for most of the time. Like the spring can kind of be wonky at times in MLB, and June is when you kind of like really prove yourself. We're heading towards the end of the month will be around the All-Star break. And that's like just past the midpoint in terms of the number of games played.
Yeah.
And then the trade deadline happens at the end of July. And that's like really in baseball. I don't know how it compares to the NHL, but compared to the NBA and especially the NFL, baseball has like by far the most trades because there's so many minor league players, you're often trading minor league players for major league talent right then and there, unlike like trading draft picks or trading players for players like
Yeah.
what happens in the NFL. So it doesn't just matter like if you think you can win for the sake of winning. Like you have to evaluate where your roster is and how likely you are to make the playoffs so that you can decide whether you're going to be a buyer or seller is what they
Yeah.
call it. And so we're kind of getting to that stage where people are trying to figure out whether they're buyers or sellers, which usually is clearer than it is right now. So teams that people thought were 100% going to be sellers might not be, like the White Sox. Teams that would 100% be buyers in any other year are like the Red Sox or the uh, Mets, especially, like are really looking like they're not going to be in any like place to go like give up young players for win now talent.
Yeah.
And so the next month or so, kind of when no one's paying attention, will be when those questions are answered. So it'll be really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah.
so I, on the flip side of that, and just like a public perception sort of thing, because I have honestly been to, I feel like, a decent amount of Red Sox games this season.
Mm. They've been
Um,
terrible at home.
they have been terrible at home.
Yeah,
However, yeah, they've been terrible at home, but they won their first game against the Yankees yesterday.
they did.
Um, I think that because every time that I bring up going to a Red Sox game or something, in Boston in particular, it's an experience, and for the most part, it's like a tourist experience. And so I think that kind of takes away like the Red Sox culture here is not very much like this is like a big thing for like locals in Boston. I think from what it used to be, like I think that
Oh, it still is to a certain extent too. But yes, I know what you're saying.
I like
Certain days of the week, especially, there's a lot of
yeah,
tourists in the crowd.
like I think more than any sport, especially because of like the cost of Red Sox tickets and things like that, more than any other sport in Boston, people are just going who like are not watching the game, not following the game, don't care about the game at all. They want a hot dog. Like, and that's what they're going for. They want a hot dog and they want a beer. And that's what they're there for, which is fine. It's your money, it's your game. Um but every time that I mention going to a game, the first response, especially from people who like don't follow so much, are like, "Ah, the Red Sox suck." And like statistically, they're in the bottom of their division. Like they aren't great. And I just feel like if you're looking at it on a broad scale, you're like, yeah, this is not that great of a team. But I feel like when you're going based off like game to game, especially like the past couple weeks, they haven't they haven't been like it's not like they are like going like 10 and 0 in their last 10. But they've had some pretty big wins over the past couple weeks. I feel like against teams that they were definitely not favored to win against, and I think that like they're not good. Like my point of this is not that like they are good. And I don't think that I can really make that case by any means. It does feel like for how the season's going, at least from my point of view, and I'm interested to see what yours is, I think that they're on an upward trend with their season, at least from how they started compared to now. But I'm curious as to see what your perspective on that is. I don't think it helps that Crochet is out and Anthony. I think Anthony's still out as well.
Yeah, he's hurt. The injuries have really hurt the Red Sox.
Yeah, they had their season with injuries so far has been tough. Like their top players, a lot of their top players have been out.
Yeah, I would say that with the Red Sox, like the hard part and where fans have a good reason to gripe about management, and I know ownership has been a big thing with the Red Sox fans, is they are a big market team. They're a historically very good team, at least over the last 20 years,
Yeah.
that like didn't receive a ton of investment relative to like where they should be competing this year. So they had gaps in their lineup and in their pitching staff, especially. They chose not to kind of plug and
Hmm.
hoped that the young guys and some of these like lower tier signings they had would fill those gaps, and they haven't thus far. Slash, there's been injuries.
Hmm.
They could be a team that totally turns it around in the second half. The question is that enough? It probably won't be in their division because they do have two, like the American League, like I was talking about the muddy picture. The American League is way more so of that than the National League. But the two of the teams that have been consistently good have been the Yankees and the Rays. Now the Yankees have had some rough spells at times, but they like have a very good record. So do the Rays. Those two teams I think are going to like run away with the division. They'll probably be in a race towards the end. The Red Sox are not going to win the AL East. Now, with that said, because every other division has had such like a mediocre start, the wild card race is kind of there for the taking if a team like the Red Sox can get their stuff together.
Yeah.
And so I think that will prevent the Red Sox from fully giving up on the season, and that would include like not trading away some of their veterans. Um, Not that they have really valuable assets in that regard, like Duran maybe they could trade, but anyways, all that to say,
I don't think Duran is necessarily. I don't know. I feel like he's been fairly good. I yeah.
it's that no, it's more that like that there's been trade talks with Jaron Duran for a long time. Regardless, all I'm saying is they could improve their play and have a realistic shot at making the playoffs, which sometimes when you start off like this, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But because the American League has been so mediocre, there is a shot there. They have the talent. They have tons of talent. Roman Anthony's a phenomenal like prospect slash player now. Marcelo Mayer has like
Yeah.
elite prospect status that he hasn't really come like fully put together. Rafael is very talented. Even Duran himself, like he's
Yeah.
older, but you get what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
Crochet is the top end starter, like Cy Young finalist. Like you, all of those things point to a team that could be playing in October. I am skeptical that they will be able to put it all together in time
Hmm.
to make those kind of decisions roster wise for like the end of July, really. And the injuries are a big part of that.
What were your thoughts on their major coaching change?
Oh, Cora getting fired was interesting. I mean, like in terms of how important the coach slash manager is to your team in all of the major team sports, like baseball, they it's really even shifted the last 10 to 15 years. Like managers are important. They don't like not do anything, but they're not going to be the reason you typically. They're not going to be like the reason your season is good or bad. They will be the kind of difference maker in like at the margins. And Cora was seen as a very good manager, and I think for the most part he was. And I can't speak to his like lineup construction, which is like a big part of where the man or his bullpen management, which are the two things that like a manager really does influence. But he had just been around for a long time, and culture wise, had this interesting history as being like the World Series winning manager who then got ousted for the scandal with the cheating and then kind of returned and was kind of seeing the return was coinciding with them kind of trying to be competitive again,
Hmm.
reinvigorating um, what could have been a declining core. What was a declining core? Him getting fired might be like a sign that like they're trying to even move past that kind of era, if you want to call it that. Doing it mid-season or so early in the season, interesting move because a lot of their issues were, like I said before, rooted in the offseason and what they didn't do more than what they did do. And so we'll see. I don't think it'll have a major impact on how their season went. In the long run, it could be indicative of like decisions they're going to make. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
all right.
yeah, I think that's good for baseball for now. We'll check back in on it when we talk.
Yeah, I guess our next episode, I feel like we covered a lot. Since this was our first one, I feel like we had
We
to
just had
cover.
to have a baseline
Yeah,
with all the
I think we
sports.
needed to cover a particularly large amount because we're just starting.
Yeah, yeah, and then
Um,
we
we can touch back.
yeah,
Yeah, we can
exactly.
circle back.
Yeah,
All right, cool. Well, thanks for watching.
yeah.
We'll see you guys. Maybe we could do weekly.
We might be able to do weekly. We'll
We
see.
could film like on Zoom. It's like an hour. We can you're telling me you can't squeeze an hour a week.
We'll see. I will see the podcast listeners again at some point. Whether it's every week is to be determined.
All right. Well,
Well, there we go.
okay.